What's a conspiracy you truly believe? Mine is that weird, but popular, Instagram accounts and other social, are actually a psyop that post crazy things to gauge and hone understanding of human response and stimuli. Sometimes the meme itself will be utter nonsense, but the response to it, actually super invaluable. To go a step further, it's not just to observe but learn how to influence as well. This comes partially to the fact that a given account will post something random, then months and months later you realize the random internet joke is actually using a still image from a movie and the sequel to the movie actually happens to be coming out soon. Then the old meme starts referencing the meme in relat. Familiar with their website Kills which plays a massive role in shaping the conversation. If you want to learn more, I suggest checking out this video, which covers this and lists all their sources if you want to read further. I think a lot of their more extreme stunts can be explained as vegans who genuinely care about animals giving into despair. They know that whatever they do, most people won't take their message seriously because of the aforementioned astroturfing and general anti-vegan sentiment, so they resort to whatever gets the most attention because it won't matter anyways. But a lot of it also comes down to perspective. Vegans place value in preventing unnecessary harm to animals, and so for most of them, causing people to accept their actions as wrong is a necessary step to reducing that harm. For someone who doesn't sympathize with that cause, of course they would come off as rude and crazy. I don't think PETA's necessarily made the smartest moves 100% of the time, but they are making a genuine effort to stand up for what they believe. A broader way to apply this principle into a conspiracy is the suggestion that large real estate funds and tech companies, e.g. BlackRock and more recently Zillow, are using their massive capital and data capabilities to pave an efficient and profitable entry into massive real estate investments. In other words, buying up residential homes to accumulate as much land and real estate as possible, and then renting those homes back out to people at premiums, thus rapidly driving up the cost of home ownership to a point such that the average person will no longer own a home, but instead rent perpetually. If you have the money, and the data insight to execute effectively, aka risk mitigation, then as a company you can generate profit for eternity by taking in rents with a relatively simple business model, while simultaneously eliminating the mortgage as the middle-class person's most powerful tool for upward mobility and leverage. Another reason subscription-based models are desirable to investors is because they provide great projections of future cash flows for the company to release and sell a product that people. But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never gonna get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying, to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else, but I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, Well-educated people capable of critical thinking. There. It's an interesting theory, one that I held myself until I studied quantum mechanics. The Rutherford model of the atom, aka electron marbles orbiting proton and neutron marbles making up the nucleus, doesn't accurately describe it, though. Particles exhibit wave properties as well, so an electron's orbit is more akin to a vibrating string wrapped around the nucleus, only that these vibrations are not actual vibrations, but distributions of the probability that the electron is at that position. The motion of planets on the macroscopic scale is generally well understood under classical celestial mechanics, but these use a lot of shared tools with quantum mechanics. That's not to say that these similarities are not suspicious, and that there's a lot of physics we simply don't understand yet. I wouldn't be surprised if one day there was a direct connection between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Good catch anyway. FK was killed on accident by one of his Secret Service agents. Oswald was there and shooting, but an agent also accidentally fired one that hit him in the head. Edit. Basically, the theory is that Oswald shot once and in response to that the Secret Service agents pulled out their guns, ready to defend the president from the shooter they couldn't see yet. At the same time, when the drivers heard the shot they began to accelerate away, also trying to protect the president. One Secret Service agent, standing on the edge of the car behind the president, essentially accidentally pulled the trigger as the car lurched away, then Oswald fired again. It explains how the shots were heard in such quick succession, and it explains why gunpowder was smelled on the street level, and it explains why the trajectory of the impact doesn't make sense coming from Oswald. The truth honestly was much more stupid. We have accounts from some of the CIA and FBI folks investigating Al-Qaeda, which show how close they got to stopping the attacks. We knew they were plotting a plane-based terror attack, we knew there were likely Al-Qaeda operatives training at flight schools, and we knew some form of attack was likely imminent. The problem was that the intelligence agencies weren't communicating, so they each knew a part of the picture, but not enough to understand what was going on. They also simply failed to comprehend the idea that the planes would be used as suicide missiles. They were used to bombings or hijackings for ransom, and they fooled themselves into believing that an attack of those sorts was being planned. If there is one 9/11 related conspiracy I do believe, it's about the CIA's actions in the lead-up to the attacks. There was a joint CIA-FBI task force investigating Al-Qaeda before September 11, which had managed to identify several of the future hijackers in the US. The FBI agents on the task force wanted to arrest these terrorists immediately, but the CIA used their authority to block those arrests from happening. What I suspect, and this suspicion is shared by some of the FBI agents from the task force, is that the CIA was likely trying to recruit these terrorists as intelligence assets to gather information on Al-Qaeda. Doing so would have been massively illegal, as the CIA isn't authorized to act on American soil, but it would explain the otherwise almost inexplicable blocking of immediate arrests. Stolen from another Redditor. I believe Sirhan did not kill Bobby Kennedy. /u/the_Budhavers. The Los Angeles coroner Thomas Noguchi, who performed the autopsy of RFK, is not convinced that Sirhan was the killer. Until more is precisely known, the existence of a second gunman remains a possibility. Thus, I have never said that Sirhan killed Robert Kennedy. The autopsy of Kennedy's body suggested that all 4 shots that hit him came from behind, at an upward angle, and powder marks on his skin showed they must have been from close range, but Sirhan was in front of Kennedy, firing horizontally from several feet away, and after shooting 2 shots was overcome by hotel staff who pinned him to a table. Nina Rhodes Hughes, the eyewitness to the RFK shooting, told CNN. "What has to come out is that there was another shooter to my right. The truth has got to be told. No more cover UPS." Kennedy's autopsy clearly revealed that the senator was hit 4 times and that 5 others at the scene were wounded. If at least 9 shots were fired, one must have been fired by someone other than Sirhan, who was carrying an 8-shot revolver. Bullet holes in a door frame at the crime scene, which are documented in FBI photographs, show that more bullets were fired than could have come from Sirhan's gun. The police never disclosed these bullets, even though their removal by LAPD criminalists was observed by other police personnel. The door frame in question was then destroyed under color of a court order issued immediately after Sirhan's trial without notice to the defense. Paul Schrade, a close associate of Kennedy's who was director of the United Auto Workers Union, was at the senator's side in the pantry and was shot in the head by Sirhan. He believes Sirhan should be granted parole as it was impossible for him to have actually achieved killing RFK. The official record shows that the prosecution at Sirhan's trial never had one witness, and had no physical nor ballistic evidence, to prove Sirhan shot Robert Kennedy. Schrade. Attorneys for Sirhan, William Pepper and Lori Dusek, also allege fraud was committed at Sirhan's 1969 trial when prosecutors allowed substitute bullets to be admitted as evidence in place of the real bullets removed from Kennedy's neck and shooting survivor Ira Goldstein's hip. There was a fraud on the court with respect to the ballistics evidence. I think this is quite clear. Pepper. I actually contacted my state to complain that this 20-mile stretch of 4-lane highway I drove on daily and got pulled over a couple times a year, had an artificially low speed limit and wanted to have it raised. It is wide open highway in a rural area with no sharp turns. The speed limit is 55. The guy I talked to said, just go 7 to 9 miles over the speed limit and you'll be fine. This was over 10 years ago now, but I still get super annoyed because the turnpike in my state is now up to 70 miles an hour and driving cross country, 70 to 80 miles an hour is pretty common. I barely do 70 when it's legal, so yes, I agree that a lot of places keep their speed limit low for revenue. The 2017 or 2018 NFC Championship game sealed the deal on this one. The NFL was actively enforcing the helmet-to-helmet rule that year. Then that Rams player hits the Saints WR before the ball helmet-to-helmet. The ref was a foot away looking at it. No flag. Instead of spot of the foul plus 15. The NFL clearly wanted the second largest, and newest market, in the Super Bowl. That's just the one I recall most because I was there. Any fan can name half a dozen times when I ref incorrectly made a call that hands the game to a team not deserving the win. Funny enough, I still remember the big news that Reagan had Alzheimer's. My mom had been a geriatric nurse for about 20 years at that point, and both of her parents had Alzheimer's. Imagine my joy, now my mom is starting to show some signs. Her response? Well, no shit, he has Alzheimer's. He was slowing symptoms while he was president. No. Really? Watch some of the footage. One of the problems with a system that favors age, wealth, and connections over competence and capability. Edit, as a Canadian, I acknowledge our system is not significantly better. COVID was released on purpose by the CCP in order to influence the 2020 election / retaliate against Trump for taking a strong-handed approach to dealing with China. I believe the secondary goal was to eliminate their own aging population. Their one-child policy caused an imbalance between the number of elderly and the number of working-age adults in their country. It was an untenable situation that was hurting them economically. Many people compared Trump to Hitler, but the CCP is the closest thing in the modern world to pure evil. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm starting to think my husband and my psychiatrists have been gaslighting me into thinking I have bipolar disorder when I don't. Just because sometimes I'm difficult and stubborn, so they've labeled it as mental illness. I went along with it for years and go to therapy and take my meds religiously. But my last two therapists and psychiatrist after my long-term therapist/psychiatrist retired keep saying all the examples I give them of my manic episodes are not in fact mania. Howdy, you're referring to people like me. I'm a research scientist who works in clinical trial data review. At the end of the day, I don't have sole access to enough data to show that a medication under clinical review is sufficiently effective and safe. Almost no one has 100% access to the data. So it would be really hard for me to know if something truly was the cure. But this isn't why I don't think the original conspiracy is correct. I don't think the cure has been found because a cure would make more money than chemo, maintenance drugs, etc. combined. Because, dead people can't pay bills. Someone gets cancer, receives treatment, and dies, their family isn't obligated to pay for any of the debt. But guess who can pay? People given a cure to survive another day. Because people can get cancer multiple times in their life, a cure wouldn't prevent needing treatment. It would prevent death and allowing for more. I believe they're putting hormones in the water supply to change our fertility and testosterone. They look at demographic information and political affiliations to make some people more fertile, or weaker, or stronger, or smarter, or dumber. The end goal is to weaken populations deemed a threat to the hegemonic one-world government, ruled over by the elite. Obviously the elites are lizard people, who are using 5G and forced vaccinations to magnetize and gain mind control over people all over the world. They use birds to transmit electromagnetic hypnotic suggestion and make whole populations shuffling automatons. Crystals can block the 5G radiation by harmonizing the atmospheric pressure, which is why they use chemtrails from planes to counter that effect. This also serves to control the weather. Once they have control of enough minds, they're going to freeze the whole world and teach themselves to ski. I've had many thoughts on COVID. The virus is real enough, I'm sure. But I do believe it is a bioweapon. Given that conspiracy theorists and whistleblowers were spot on about this pandemic, meaning they said it was coming years and years ago, I would say then that the shots are also a weapon. Makes sense, if genocide is what you're about, why give your targets an out, right? Also, I personally wonder if these new variants are directly caused by the shots. Meaning that the thing has tears. You have the base virus. No big deal. Most are just fine. Spike the fear, though, people rush to get the shot. Those that get the shot may actually be more protected for 90 days, sure, but they are spreading a new variant that was in the shot. They don't get run down by it, because you would certainly need to show that your fake medicine has benefits. Men as strong and manly, and only allow American media they consume to depict weak men, that it will create a mindset that we are weaker and therefore give more hope that we will be an easy target to take control of. This is further pushed when you look at the recent wokeness of America, including our own military propaganda, where we show woke groups in military positions and continue to lower the standards of our military men and women so more can pass the physical requirements for such groups. I'm all for women in the military, but I also believe that to do so you should be able to perform on the same level as the men, for the simple reason that those standards exist for a reason. For instance, being able to carry a set weight a set distance. It should be the same for both men and women because the whole reason for it is to make sure that soldier can handle the task of picking up and carrying a wounded soldier back to base or to safety to get treatment. By lowering the standard for women means that the soldier next to them goes down, they are gonna have to lay there and die because she was never made to lift such a weight and carried to safety. It's a liability. The wokeness is making America look weak to the rest of the world, and that puts a giant target on our back for other countries to try and step all over us and possibly try something like an